A new bill introduced by Pennsylvania Republican lawmakers would make arrested protesters have to pay for police overtime. Wow. And the police state continues, folks. The bill 754 has been introduced by Representative Scott Martin of Lancaster County. His district has been the site of anti-pipeline protests aimed at the Atlantic Sunrise natural gas pipeline. I did a story about this pipeline a couple months ago, and they're trying to use the same tactics they did up at Standing Rock. And so people are starting to protest it. So now they're going to, if they can't beat you to death and hit you with water cannons, now they're going to try to get you to pay. So they're really going to make it so you literally can't afford to protest. This is how the deep corporate state works. It's like when I've done some stories even recently, and YouTube has demonetized them because Google, which owns YouTube, doesn't want us talking about war. So they can't say, because of the First Amendment, they can't just block the video, but they'll make it so we can't make money off of it. That's a form of censorship. So now it's like, yeah, you can protest all you want, but you have to pay cops overtime. And you know the pipeline companies paid Representative Scott Martin of Lancaster County. First of all, if you live in Pennsylvania, you need to get on the phone immediately and get a hold of this. Say you are against Bill SB 754 that has been introduced in the Pennsylvania State Senate. You need to be as vocal about this as you possibly can. You need to email, you need to spread this video to anybody that you know that lives in Pennsylvania. Post this video on their Facebook page or whatever, because this is something you need to protest immediately. I'm going to go into the details of this stupid goddamn bill. Under the terms of the bill, a person is responsible for public safety response costs incurred by a state agency or political subdivision as a result of the state's agency or political subdivision's response to a demonstration. If, in contention with the demonstration, the person is convicted of a felony or misdemeanor offense. In other words, they could be on the book for costs such as police overtime, medical or emergency response, and other basic public services associated with the protest. Whatever felony or misdemeanor offense the protester was convicted of would come with its own independent penalty. If you live in Pennsylvania, protest this bill, and then try to see if there's a progressive somewhere that is in, maybe you live in a district where there's a progressive, and tell them they need to introduce a law that pipeline companies need to pay all of the costs of protests. Introduce that bill. Stick it right to them. Fight them the way they fight. Find some legal loophole to jam it to them, because these people are assholes. The pipeline industry, they're dicks and they're assholes. Dicks and assholes. That's who's doing this. Assholes and dicks. Elizabeth Randall, the legislative director at the Pennsylvania American Civil Liberties Union, raised two separate concerns about the bill. First, she warned it could end up punishing protesters for acts they didn't commit. No, come on, Elizabeth. You think the cops are going to stick somebody with some bullshit charge just because they were protesting? Oh, Elizabeth. How could you say that? Police and lawmakers are usually so upstanding. People can be fined and charged, liable for costs associated with a particular crime they committed. That's normal, she noted. What's different is that it expands it to allow the government entity, like, say, a state, or it could be the National Guard, it could be the police department, to determine, to leave it up to them as to whether or not they want to attempt to recover additional costs that are associated with the protest, but that are not necessarily related to a specific crime that the individual is convicted of. She warned that the legislation would single out protesters. Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. It is designed to single out protesters. They don't want you to protest. They just want to put their pipeline through there. When it starts leaking through Pennsylvania, everybody, if this pipeline is built, it will leak. The Dakota Access Pipeline has already leaked at least twice. It will leak. There's contaminated water in Flint, Michigan. There's contaminated water in North Carolina, and you will have contaminated water in Pennsylvania if these assholes get their will. And you now will be on the hook for the cost of overtime for cops if you decide to protest it. So I jump ahead of this now. So it's really And here are the other places you need to. It's disconcerting on a lot, just showing what to do. And the Dakota Access victory has emboldened these assholes. Thanks to Obama for doing nothing for months. He did nothing until he just did this out the door. Oh, I'm gonna stop it, knowing, oh, Trump's gonna get sworn in a month later and they'll get to do this. Sunco Logistics is a company working on the Mariner 2 East Pipeline. Now, I did a video about the Mariner 2 East Pipeline several months ago. You might want to go back and watch that as well. Another Pennsylvania-based project that demonstrators have besieged. The company involved with the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline, Transco, hired the Pennsylvania Advocacy Group last year for consulting work. The Pennsylvania Advocacy Group was created in part by two lobbyists who worked at CNS. Weird that the people from, they tried to get interviews from them. This is based on an article in The Intercept that was written by Zaid Jilani. We've covered many of his stories. So this is something to follow. If you live in Pennsylvania, get on top of this. If you have friends or family that live in Pennsylvania, share this video with them and get them involved. Thanks for watching. Go to the patreon.com/Graham Elwood, support the show. Like, subscribe, positive reviews on iTunes if you're listening to this, and all of that other stuff. Great ways to support the show. You guys are fantastic.